Hello, everybody. Welcome to Debt Free Degree with Dr. Roz. Y'all, I am so excited about this interview. So I am here with Logan Boyd. His mom is Kathleen Dreier. And when you all are watching this, you're gonna have seen Kathleen's video and then Logan's video, because they are a mother-son duo, and we're getting to hear about Logan's debt-free degree journey from his mom's side and now from his side. So I am thrilled. Honestly, Logan, you are the first person ever that I've known personally who has won this scholarship. And so I'm super excited to hear your story. So why don't you just sort of tell us the trajectory of your debt-free degree? I really want you to tell folks the school that you went to and the degree that you achieved, and even if you don't want to share exactly where you're working, but what field you're working in, because I think that's also really exciting. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Logan, and just say thank you in advance for being here.
Oh, sure. Well, actually, thank you for giving me a chance to talk about it. You know, I don't really get a chance to share that with a lot of people. I don't really seek it out that often, so I think it's kind of refreshing to be able to do that.
Great. I'm deeply honored now that I know that.
Let's see. So I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and I went to high school at Tucson High, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do after graduating. But I knew that I probably wouldn't be able to go to college if I didn't have a scholarship. And it was really impressed upon me that, I really want to avoid debt.
Good.
So, my mom, being who she is, she really pushed me, and she helped me a lot with researching various scholarships. And so I applied for quite a few. And one of them was the Gates Millennium Scholarship. And I forgot who it was we talked to, but there was some agent or something who, was giving advice on what, various things to apply for. And this was one who popped up, or this was one program that popped up, and he was kind of hesitant about it because there was such a low chance of it actually happening, and there were a few requirements that I didn't meet quite. So one of which was having a GPA of a minimum of 3.3. And I think at the time of learning that, mine was only 3.29. So I was like, okay, well, I can at least try for it. This would be amazing. And this was a scholarship that would see me through 5 years of undergrad, and depending on the field that I chose, it would see me through a graduate program and would even help pay for part of a doctorate program.
Wow.
But I think the field for those, where it had to be a math or sciences related degree. So knowing all that, I set out to try and get my GPA up a little bit, and just build up a resume that was, sort of worthy for this application. And it was pretty rigorous. There were 8 separate prompts for essays for one. So I had to write 8 full essays about various aspects of my life and what I would do with the scholarship, my plans for my future, stuff like that. You had to have quite a bit of community service and just demonstrate that you're contributing to society and stuff like that. And I think there were later I found out there were 52,000 applicants. Yeah. So and there were 1,000. So there were 1,000 of those were selected for the scholarship. So if it was just chance, I think there's something like a 2% chance that I would have gotten that scholarship.
Wow.
So I consider myself extremely fortunate. I like to make this distinction between luck and being fortunate, because I really did have to work hard for it. But not everybody was fortunate enough to get it. Everybody was qualified to get that.
Mhm.
But I was one of the fortunate ones. And so, after having gotten that, I was actually born in Denver, Colorado. And that's where my father and brothers lived at the time. So I thought it'd be nice to go back to Colorado and study there. I could be closer to them. And because this scholarship was pretty dependent on being in a math or sciences related field,
Mm.
I decided to study computer science.
Mm.
It didn't take very long for me to learn that computer science was not for me. I, in fact, it got pretty bad at one point. I wasn't failing classes, but I was getting pretty close, and
Mm.
I actually was put on academic probation for a little bit, just because my GPA was tanking so hard, and I was worried because uh, if you don't rectify that, you could lose your scholarships and whatnot.
Right.
Um, so I got some help. I fixed it up, the areas that I need to fix, and I decided that I need to move away from computer science because it's just I'm a very logical person, but when it comes to just sitting there and punching in numbers
Mhm.
and letters and stuff like that, it's not for me. So I shifted my focus to what I originally wanted to do, was something more artistic based. And it was very general at the school that I was at, which was Colorado State University. And it was just sort of a general fine art degree, or at least area of study. And that's not really, it's a state school, so they didn't really focus a lot of their resources into the art program. And
Mm.
knowing that, looked at some other schools that I might be able to go to. And a friend of mine in high school was studying to be an animator at this school called MICA, or the Maryland Institute College of Art, which is just
Mm.
a private arts college in Baltimore, Maryland. And so I checked it out kind of on a whim. I didn't really know much about animation at the time, but
Wow.
so I checked it out, thought it was awesome. And yeah, aside from loving animation, I had never created animation. And I don't know, I guess just it was just something, some sort of universal force was like, check it out. And I ended up studying there for 4 years, well, 3 years, and uh, graduated with a bachelor's of fine art in animation. And yeah, that was that. I think, um, let's see, what was it? It was senior year, and I was about to graduate. We were just wrapping up thesis, and I had no idea what I was going to do for work. And so my current boss came in just like out of nowhere, and um, he understands that in this part of the states, in Maryland specifically, um, there's very little animation job opportunity out here.
Mhm.
And so his whole goal was to start an animation studio in this part of the country. And this was like, we were weeks away from graduating at this point. So I was like the chances of him just coming in saying, I'm going to start a studio across the street and I'm looking for animators. It was just, I don't really have the words to describe the chance of that, but it was pretty amazing. So needless to say, I applied for the job, and I got it. It started as an internship.
Mm.
So, it was a small startup, and we're just working on some projects. He let's see. So he's an ex NFL player turned author, and he wrote a couple shows for Netflix that ended up doing all right. And he wanted to start his own studio. So that's why he did that, and I became a an animator there. Uh, so after that, I've been working there for 3 years now.
Wow.
Start as an intern, and eventually worked my way up as the company was growing. And I'm now the co-director for the 2D department, and I am acting as the lead animator and compositor for that department. And so we're working on some pretty cool projects, and it's just cool to help lead a team of about 22 to 25, something like that, and just making some big decisions on how to move forward and communicating with people overseas and stuff like that. It's really been an interesting experience for sure.
Wow. Wow. I know everybody watching this is just in awe, because number one, you got this amazing scholarship that, as you said, only 1,000 out of 52,000 were recipients. I love what you said about being fortunate versus luck. Absolutely. But then also you're in a field where I think, as I said to you in prep for this video, I used to have folks all the time that would say, I love video games, or I love cartoons, or I love whatever, and I want to go into this field. But the jobs were so rare that I haven't had a student probably in the last 5 years tell me that they're interested in that. And of course, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and Disney is not that far away, and a lot of people want to do be a Disney animator, and so the fact that you are in animation, I think, is just remarkable and phenomenal. So I want to dig in just a little bit deeper, Logan, if you don't mind, and of course anything that you say, like, feel free to say I don't really want to talk about that, or or answer it some other way. I want to kind of dig in a little bit about how you and your mom divided the work, because on in Debt Free Degree, I have it's almost half and half, students and parents. So I have some parents who want to get the information and they're sharing it with their students, and of course, the Patreon is a family membership. It's not like if you, Logan, if you and your mom are going through this right now, y'all would have one membership, but then I also have students who may not know the words to ask their mom to help. We talk a lot about, in Debt Free Degree, we talk about the 80-20 rule and where you can apply that and then where you can't. And obviously you don't want to do 80% of a scholarship application. You want to do 100% of that. But there are some places where you can divvy things up. So that's my first question. If you can think back and think about how you and your mom divided the workload.
When you talk about the workload, are you referencing like the specific process for the applications, or
anything having to do with you getting scholarships? Because, well, first of all, did you only receive one scholarship?
No, I received I actually don't remember. It was probably 2 or 3 before I knew I got the Gates Millennium Scholarship, and then there were a couple after that where I was one of, if not the top choice for it. But because the scholarship was so comprehensive, that money obviously would have been better suited for another student. But yeah, it was more than that one.
Could I just ask a quick question, Logan? And this is one definitely you can say, I don't want to answer that. There are a lot of scholarships. There are a lot of people. There are a lot of students who will layer scholarships. And so oftentimes what will happen is, if let's say a school costs $10,000 a semester, but you've earned $12,000 in scholarships, that can be paid out anywhere, because some of them will only pay for tuition, some will only pay for housing and all of that. But let's just say, all numbers being equal, could you not have taken that extra on top of the Gates Millennial and put it in Logan's pocket?
So how it worked, at least with those combined scholarships, is because I already had those few locked in. I reported that to the foundation, and so they basically deduced that section that would have been paid for by those other scholarships from my tuition and room and board or whatever, and they paid the balance. But those so there wasn't anything, you know, overflowing from the additional scholarships. However, there was occasionally some overflow from the, you know, the big one in later years.
Okay.
And that was basically a little bit extra that they tacked on for additional expenses, you know, books and food, and I guess like rent if you weren't to live on campus and stuff like that. So
okay, excellent.
yeah.
Excellent. So yes, so back to the question with you and your mom. So you had applied for some of these ones that obviously weren't full rides for 4 years, 5 years. And so did she find them? Did you find them? Once you wrote the essay, did she critique the essay or give you edit suggestions, or did you use, you know, somebody else? I mean, what did that process look like?
Yeah, so we worked very closely together, I'd say. I mean, she's always been very involved in my life, which I'm very grateful for. So I think for a lot of the scholarships, I would say at least the slight majority of them, I would go and do my own research while she was encouraging me to, you know, continue to work hard and search for as many scholarships as I can. So she was more pushing me to find them. As far as applying for them, that was mostly on me. And of course, I would have her proofread all my essays and give any suggestions like that. So I would say it definitely rounded out to about 50%. When it came to the Gates Millennium Scholarship, I don't remember how we got around to finding out about that, but I remember she would take me to various there's like maybe 2 or 3 advisors that would provide information on different scholarships and even schools and stuff like that. So I mean, with all of that, you know, I would even maybe give her the majority of the work in some instances. You know, she would literally drive me place to place, and you know, we'd sit down and listen and think of all of our options and stuff like that. And yeah, I would use other resources too. I remember specifically one of my English teachers. I told him about the scholarship, and I asked him to, you know, help revise my my essays and stuff like that, see where I can improve them, and, you know, not be redundant and use you know, more interesting language and stuff like that. So he was very helpful. Yeah. And then I guess I could attribute some of it to like my sports coaches and stuff like that, because they, you know, obviously provided me with some of the experiences that I needed to be, you know, as competent a candidate as possible. So,
right. Wow.
But yeah, as far as just me and my mom, I would give her like the majority of the credit, because I don't think I would be very far without her. That's for sure.
Wow. 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 And there are a lot of moms that, you know, I mean, sometimes what happens is students and parents can be at cross purposes. And so a mom may hear, let me just give you a list of scholarships, when really what you're saying, a lot of what your mom did was motivate you, be your cheerleader, be your taxi driver, you know, just like being there. Whereas for other folks, they may really want the list of stuff and, you know, have a little more hands-off approach. So it's a great opportunity for students, parents, educators who are watching this to then sit down and have a communication, you know, with your child about, you know, or your parents, what does that look like? So the other thing that's intriguing to me is that you started at school number 1 and transferred to school number 2. And oftentimes, particularly when you transfer out of state, and particularly going either to a private school or from a private school, oftentimes all those credits don't transfer over. So did Micah accept everything that you had earned at Colorado State?
No. So I went to Colorado State for 2 years, and I thought I had a pretty good amount of credits that would transfer over. But once I actually got to Micah, they only took less than half of them, I think. So I still had to take another 3 years at Micah. But again, I was fortunate because the scholarship covered up to 5 years of undergraduate. So that wasn't an issue. Yeah.
Okay. And then I really loved because I didn't know that you had majored in computer science and then weren't doing particularly well. But it was because I knew what the trajectory was, and you said that's not really my thing, and I was thinking, well, that's exactly what you do in my mind. I mean, that's what you do. And so it's interesting that you have such a compassion or such a passion and such tremendous ability in an area as large as, and so I don't know if animation fits under computer science, but to me, you're certainly creating with the computer, right?
Yeah. Well, I decided to go, it's hard to call it traditional, but for this sake, yeah, I went a more traditional route in terms of animation. So instead of using, a mouse and keyboard, I use a drawing tablet and a stylus and stuff like that. So
Wow.
I'll draw the images by hand, and that's where the traditional aspect comes from. I mean, I started with a light box, so it's basically just a table with a light shining through, and then you'd have your paper and you make a drawing on it, and you put another paper on top of that, and then you draw what the next pose would be, and you just flip it back and forth to see if the motion's correct and stuff like that.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, my girlfriend actually, she's a 3D animator, so she does use a mouse and a keyboard, but she doesn't do coding. So in computer science, I was writing, or at least learning how to write programs using like computer language and stuff like that.
Okay.
Which you can use that in projects that also involve animation. So like if you're creating a video game, you can have a computer scientist or a coder write certain actions, and you can also have an animator contribute their animations to that same project and stuff like that. So there's definitely room for computer science in similar spaces, but I wouldn't equate the two of them.
Okay. So obviously with Gates, they were fine with you moving from school A to school B. They were fine with not all the credits transferring as long as you got done in 10 semesters, I'm guessing, or maybe they let you do summer school. So maybe 15 semesters with summer school. And then what I appreciated so much your transparency in saying, not only did you change schools and you changed majors, but also you had some academic issues, and then you overcame those. So do you mind talking just a little bit about like the actual steps that you took to overcome that, but also a little bit about mindset, a little bit about like sometimes I'll say to students, is that a speed bump or is that a stop sign? Because that's two different things. We need to slow down to go over the speed bump, but that doesn't mean stop and go a different direction. And sometimes the stop sign is, yeah, this is just not for me, and we need to go a different path. And so do you mind talking a little bit about what you actually did to overcome it, but then also mentally, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, what that looked like for you?
Yeah, so at first, I think part of the reason that I got to that place to begin with was I was just so distracted and being away from home for the first time, and having a level of freedom that I hadn't really had before. And, I was basically living with my friends, and I could eat whatever I wanted and go wherever I wanted and stuff like that. So I got kind of wrapped up in more like the social aspect of things. And I just didn't really want to, I didn't really want to study and stuff like that, on top of it being a very, difficult field. And at this school, we didn't really have like, assignments to help, flip up our grades or whatever. It was just, you had 4 tests
Yes.
basically,
Yes.
and each test was like 25+% of your grade.
Right.
So if you miss one or you fail one, you're already in pretty bad shape. So that just all did not add up to anything good. So once I actually got into what they called academic probation, and I think that was you're automatically entered into that when you have like a below a 2.0 GPA or something.
Okay.
So I think at its worst, I was at like 1.9, and I felt at first I was very hard on myself, because like I had worked so hard to even have the opportunity to go to school and to graduate without debt. And obviously, I mean, I remember my mom being very disappointed, and I felt very bad about that too, because she does so much to help me. So I felt like I had let her down. I felt like I had let myself down, but I didn't think that was very productive, ultimately.
Good.
Just to like, feel so negatively towards myself. So Gates, upon hearing about the academic probation status, I think I was in touch with some counselors with with the program, as well as working closely with somebody at the school, I think. And essentially, I don't quite remember the steps. I mean, that was a while ago, but I had to, with their help and whatnot, basically just get back on track and develop good habits.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not totally remembering exactly what went into it. I just remember it was just a mental shift for sure.
Yes. What I love about that, Logan, is number one, you acknowledge that feeling of I've let myself down, I've let my mom down. And then you said, okay, I see the feeling, I'm feeling the feeling, but that's not helpful. And it's not going to be the thing that moves me to the next level. And so what is it that I need to switch? And so had you said, oh, no big deal, and just shoved it off, that wouldn't have been helpful either. And so acknowledging it, but then finding that way through is so critical. And your story, while exceedingly unique and wonderful and fabulous, but the arc of it, again, I changed colleges, I changed majors, and I was on academic probation. There are a lot of people who have that same story, and yet their ending is so different, Logan, because they didn't have that mindset shift. And we talk so much about that in terms of debt-free degree, that you really do have to begin with the end in mind, and you have to see it, and you have to work for that. I don't know I don't know that I could think of any institution of higher ed that doesn't offer all of the support that a student could want or need. But it's a matter of getting students to take advantage of it consistently in order to make a difference, and academic support. Like I've had students that say, I studied 15 hours for that test and I still failed it. And my response is, it's not practice makes perfect, but perfect practice makes perfect. So if you spent 15 hours and you still failed it, then you didn't expend your 15 hours in such a way that would be effective to demonstrate your knowledge on that particular exam. And so that's what I love as far as your mindset shift. You also talked about being at Micah, is it Micah? Did I say that right? Yes. And that it's like it's like what it seems like with me as I'm listening to your story, Logan, is it's like this step opened up and this step opened up. Many of you know that I'm a certified trainer of nonviolence for the Martin Luther King Center. And so nonviolence, Martin Luther King's philosophy undergirds really everything that I do. And I believe that graduating debt-free is a form of nonviolence. So it's a form of changing that trajectory. And one of the things that Dr. King says is you don't have to see the whole staircase. You just need to take the next step, the next right step. And for you, Logan, it's like you started, Micah, and you didn't know what was going to happen. You were weeks away from graduating and you didn't know what was going to happen. And then this person appears, again, fortunate. And then you started as an intern. You didn't know what was going to happen. And then you just follow the steps. So looking back, do you see that there were things in place that you didn't notice at the time? Or is it truly that you just have to trust the process and trust that you're always in the right place at the right time to do the thing that the universe wants you to do?
Looking back, I don't think I can spot anything specifically, or I can't recollect anything specifically that led to my circumstance now. But after transferring, I had already gotten the sort of, fresh college student mindset out of the way. I wasn't there to necessarily party or have fun. I was there to study something that I decided what was exactly what I wanted to do. And I think that drive is what led me to my current situation, but I can't think of anything specifically, just because those job opportunities came so last minute. The closest thing I could think of was there were a couple professors at the school who had some really good connections, like to some major studios and stuff like that. So, there was a point or two I tried to pursue those relationships, but I don't know, they just didn't really feel right, I guess. I mean, I felt like I was kind of, sneaking into something that wasn't necessarily meant for me. So I just, I found my own way, and it just, I think things just sort of aligned a little bit. So
yeah. So when that gentleman came in and spoke to your class or your graduating class, whatever that looked like, the gentleman that you work for now, how many of your classmates, how many of your peers also became interns and then are working there?
well, let's see. So I don't know exactly who all applied, but of my graduating class, there were probably 52 animators. And I don't remember exactly what was happening, but there was some controversy and people were like, oh, be careful of this studio or whatever. And I listened to them, but I also listened to what I thought I needed. So I applied. And like I said, I'm not sure the number of people who applied, but I was one of, I think, well, 3 animators.
Wow.
Sure, who were hired. And no, 4 specifically, because it was me, my good friend Chris, and my girlfriend.
Okay.
Which was kind of funny. We were the 3 that were always sort of like, oh, they're the ones that are really good or whatever.
Wow.
And then there was a handful of illustrators who also were interns.
Okay.
And we're actually all still working there. Not the illustrators, but the animators. And so, yeah.
Wow, wow. And this is just like a complete curiosity question. Of your other classmates that graduated in animation, are most of them, I mean, like, are 80% of them employed as an animator somewhere, or is it exceedingly tough, even with that degree, to get a job in animation?
I couldn't tell you. I mean, there are a handful of other students that I went to school with who were just really talented. So when the time came when we needed more animators for our projects, I reached out to them.
Ah,
So there were
perfect.
probably I think 3 animators specifically that I was like, they are very good and I would like them on my team.
Excellent.
As for the rest, if I had to guess, um, I would be surprised if more than like I'd probably be surprised if more than 20% of my graduating class is working in the field right now.
Really?
Yeah.
So 80%, your guesstimation, 80%-ish of folks who graduated with a degree in animation are not working in that field.
Well, it's also hard to I mean, that would be my estimation, but
Okay.
that is coming from a studio animator's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You could be an independent animator and still technically be working in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't know how many people are doing independent animation, like if they're just creating films for film festivals and stuff like that. Um, I'm not sure exactly how many went on to pursue jobs in actual studios, because that wasn't really a priority in the academia. It
Gotcha.
wasn't. We weren't really training to become studio animators. It was more just learning the basics of animation and then learning how to flourish in our own styles, I suppose.
Mm.
So I don't even know if that many people wanted to pursue a job in like the commercial or studio space. So
Okay.
I still
Excellent.
think that the fraction is probably very low.
Okay. All right. My last question, unless there's something else that you want to throw in here. What do you think, well, I guess it's kind of a two-part question. Number one, can you tell me about your trajectory of how you feel graduating debt-free has put you on a much different path than if you had the $75,000 in debt, which is the average student loan debt. So if you could kind of talk about that, but also what your advice would be to a high school student to encourage them to be debt-free and from student loan debt.
Sure. Well, for one, if I had to pull out loans for all 3 years of art school alone, not even including the time I spent at Colorado State University, I'd probably be somewhere around like $130,000 to $150,000 in debt right now.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, art school is already very
Wow.
expensive,
Wow.
and private art school especially is very, very expensive. Um, so um I'm sorry, can you repeat the question
So,
one more
so
time?
the second part is, what would your advice be, or like, because you followed the path, because it was tough. I mean, it's not that it was easy to apply for the scholarship and go through all that. However, graduating without all of that debt is freeing.
Mhm.
And I'm assuming you would say worth it for the
Oh, of
work you had to
course.
put in on the front end. And so what would your advice be? Or maybe if there's something that you wish you had known then that you know now, or something, some sort of words of pontification, since that's what this series is about.
Sure. Well, I would definitely say there is a lot more scholarships than most people think.
Mhm.
There are a myriad, of categories. I mean, you can get a scholarship for having like a specific name, I'm pretty sure. And not all of them are as complete as the Gates Millennium Scholarship, but that doesn't mean you should stop just because you don't get that one. Part of the reason that I was able to get any at all is because my mom kept telling me to apply to more and more and treat it as a job almost.
Mhm.
And I'm pretty sure at one point she told me to apply for 100 scholarships.
Yeah,
So she's like, I want you to apply for 6 a day or something like that.
right.
And which sounds ridiculous, but sometimes that's what it takes, because you can get a scholarship for $500 or something, but that'll cover the cost of your books. But
Exactly.
if you want to pay for a year of school, I mean, you have to come up with $25,000 to $50,000. So
Right.
it's that the
Right.
money's definitely out there. And so I would just say, just do the research and apply for all of them. And definitely get in some community service, any sort of extracurricular activities, and just anything that shows that you are giving, not just looking to receive, but that
Mhm.
you're giving back. I think that's
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah.
Um,
That's life, Logan. That is
mhm.
that in a nutshell is a beautiful mantra for life. To go through life, not just for what you can get, not just for what you can receive, but how are you serving? How are you showing up? How are you contributing? And then it comes back. That's the transaction. And I think when people are transactional, like, I'm only gonna interview you if you give me an animation, you know, no, but hey, I would love to interview you and get your knowledge. And then I'd like to, promote you this way, which may end up, you just don't know. And I just think that that's absolutely beautiful. So I could talk to you, Logan, for another hour, but you have already been so exceedingly generous with your time. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Any last words, any last things I didn't ask you that you wish I had of?
No, I think you about covered it.
Great, great. Logan, thank you again. I am going to get your information and put that in the notes so folks can reach out to you. And I am just once again just so deeply grateful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Hello, sunshines. Welcome to Debt Free Degree with Dr. Roz. I'm here with Kathleen Dreier. Y'all have seen her before in her video that she talked to us about her photography business, but also I have the delight and joy of speaking to both her and her son. And so you all will see these two videos linked together. But Kathleen was a single mom. She helped her son navigate successfully through high school, through college. He graduated from a very prestigious private institution out of state from where they live now with a really coveted degree. And he did it all completely debt free. And so what I love to do when we have these interviews is to talk to students and talk to parents and talk to educators and figure out how we all as a community can come together and say, let's make graduating debt free a priority. And when I had the opportunity to interview both the mom and the son, it's just such a delight. And so again, you all will see Kathleen and Logan's videos linked together. So Kathleen, I'm just going to turn it over to you and say, walk us through the trajectory of being the mom of a middle school, high school student, whenever it was that you all started thinking about college, and what happened and how you guided and directed. And I'll pop in and ask questions periodically.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Kathleen Dreier. I'm a photographer here in Tucson, Arizona. And as Elizabeth was mentioning, I was a single mother. My son is now 25 years old, and he is an animator on the East Coast. So
did y'all hear that? An animator. Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. That's a very coveted job. Yeah.
Yes, he's a 2D animator. And so being a single mother since my son was an infant, it was always on my mind. I was always worried about money. And I was, my career at that time was a social worker through my son's formative years. So probably by freshman, sophomore year, I started to think about it almost daily about what we were going to do. And by junior year, I was telling my son that it became clear to me that one avenue for him to go to college is to apply for scholarships. And every high school has, should have, ideally have, a school counselor, and each student should be assigned a school counselor that points them in the right direction to these national boards, platforms that are available, such as College Board. I think another one is called Scorecard or something like that. And what I had said to my son, his name is Logan, is, look, you're not going to get to college on a social worker mother's income. I mean, I was barely making enough just to, keep us fed and all of that. And so I suggested to him that there were two viable options. Three. Either he could go to college and have tremendous debt. Two, he could get a part-time job then when he was a junior to start mitigating or start saving money for college. Or three, he could apply for scholarships. And that I felt strongly that overall value-wise, his return on the investment of time to apply for scholarships was going to be far supersede anything that he would get in a part-time job for a year or two. And so I told him that his part-time job could be a real job like that, or it could be the job of applying for scholarships. And he very wisely chose applying for scholarships. So we basically became a team of sorts. We would spend time reviewing the scholarships that were available. His high school provided a list of scholarships that were available. We, both of us kept researching Scorecard or College Board, I believe is what it's called. What were the available scholarships? And we came across there's so many scholarships out there that people just don't know about.
$30 billion in scholarships and grants.
Okay, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding. Like, my son wasn't a straight A student. He was a pretty rock solid B+ student, and had other grades, kind of all over the map too. However, it wasn't that. There's so many scholarships that it's about complete citizenship. It is about, hey, are you a decent student? Do you have decent enough grades, passing grades, even C's? Do you have anything that is considered an underserved population, a BIPOC population, having financial limitations? Do you have certain other skill sets that, hey, there's scholarships for people who work in the farming industry, like their family is part of farming. There are scholarships that are dedicated to certain career paths. There's all different kinds. There's local scholarships that are given out by nonprofits. And there's scholarships that involve, hey, how well-rounded of a human being are you? Are you a decent student, and are you community-minded? Do you give back to your community? Are you engaged in other activities that serve your community? Or are you a more involved student in your school, like belong to different clubs or a member of a sporting group? So it's about this well-roundedness, because scholarship doesn't entail just the intellect or how it translates into a grade. So that being said.
Okay, say that again, because that is so critical for y'all to get. Scholarship does not translate just for the grade, right? There's so much more that goes into that, you as a scholarship applicant, than just simply your grades or your GPA. That was a great thing. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Kathleen. Go ahead.
So, but I'm not going to soft shoe it. Logan worked very, very hard. So I helped him locate scholarships. That was my job
Okay.
to facilitate that. And it was his job to do all the applications, all the essays. But let me tell you, like the essay questions, I think that turns off a lot of students. There's typically somewhere between 5, let's say, to 10 essay questions that are sort of universal across whatever scholarship you apply for. Well, what you do is you spend concentrated time writing out that essay, and then you adapt it, because certainly the next scholarship that you apply for will be theme and variation. So you just tweak the document, and with each scholarship, it becomes a little bit less involved timing wise, right? So Logan fit that in, on the evenings and the weekends. That was his job. His job was applying for scholarships. And then at one point we got informed.
So before you talk about the big scholarship, because I'm super excited about that, in terms of the essay, did Logan only write the essay and that was it? Did Logan, did he write it and revise it a few times and maybe have you look over it, or teachers at school look over it? I mean, what did that essay look like? The one that he actually submitted for scholarship applications?
The answer is all of the above.
Excellent.
So there were times where I edited it and I didn't change it. I simply looked for typos, grammatical errors. There were other essays that he showed his counselor at school.
Great.
And got feedback on it.
Great.
Logan also had a lot of scholarships require letters of recommendation. So you want to think about those people that you are involved with, that you contribute to, that could write a letter of recommendation. And once you have that letter of recommendation on file, it is something that you can forward every time you're applying for a scholarship.
Okay, good.
So he had scholarships from educators. He had scholarships from a bike group that he belonged to. He was working a project at our local library. I believe one of his letters of recommendation was from that position.
Wow.
Yeah. So he had, but it's a process, right? This was at least a year, a very concentrated year process, his whole academic year, focusing on that. So by the end of his first semester senior year, we got word of somebody suggested to us, my son is biracial, and someone suggested to us, hey, have you looked into the Gates Foundation scholarship? And the Gates Foundation scholarship provides up to, it's a full ride scholarship, including housing. And it is for underrepresented communities, and particularly anybody can apply for it that is in an underrepresented community, either by ethnicity or primarily female. That a person can apply regardless of what academic field that they want to go in. However, if a person is interested in the STEMs, for science, math, computer technology, that sort of thing, the Gates Millennium Scholarship can support up to and through a portion of a PhD program.
Wow.
Right. So it is an incredible form of support. Wow. And there are tens of thousands of high school students that apply every year, and 1,000 are chosen a year. So the year that Logan applied, there was 40,000 applicants.
Oh my gosh.
So he was one of 40,000 who got he was one of 1,000 that received the scholarship. And there was flexibility in that. Like he could change his major. Like he originally thought he was going to go into like computer programming, computer science, but he learned rather quickly. He's more of an artist, so that wasn't his calling. But the Gates, it was exhaustive. The application, there was many essays, there were letters of recommendation. It was extremely comprehensive. He spent hours and hours and hours pulling it together. But
was there an interview? Did he have to interview?
No,
Okay.
he did not have an interview. I do not recall that. But if I'm forgetting that, he will certainly correct me on that.
Okay.
When we speak to him. But it was a several month process. And I still remember the day of him getting home from school and the piece of mail was there. I saw it and I couldn't wait for him to get home. And I remember that moment of him opening it up. Yeah. And so now there is part of how he could qualify for that. He qualified to apply because of my economic status also. That was part of it. And so we, like I would have to fill out the FAFSA, is it every year, every semester?
Every year.
And complete that and things like that. And Logan would have to, keep them informed that his grades were at least a 2.0 or above. So you need to be, so he had to submit his grades to prove that he was still upholding his end of the bargain. And he worked hard, and the Gates allows a flexibility, like you don't have to complete your degree in 4 years. For example, Logan switched his major a couple different times, which led him to need to have 5 years of schooling before he graduated. So he had that period of time to do so. So it seems that there is a humanity to the Gates scholarship that, life happens. Like if you have to take a semester off because one got ill or your parent needs help at home, I think that there is some there's some compassion there, understanding that there can be some change. And I think Logan understands increasingly more deeply the value of the education that he was given and how much of a step up that he has by a scholarship, by that particular scholarship. Now, that being said, Logan received other scholarships too.
Right. How were those used?
He returned them. So
because like if he had gotten over the amount, they wouldn't pay him the balance.
It's actually, no, it's more altruistic than that. If he already had all of his expenses taken care of, to return a scholarship money to the organization that gave somebody else an opportunity to get support. So it was much more about not being avarice, right? Not being greedy. Like give that back so that somebody else can have an opportunity to have some support, because, not everybody who qualifies for a scholarship gets it.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
But that doesn't mean they're not worthy of it, right? So it's finding a way to give back, right? So which is a big part, I think.
Huge. That is huge.
Yeah.
So the Gates scholarship, it covered his tuition, fees, housing. Did it cover food?
He did have access to the food program.
Okay.
Yeah, and then, or he utilized the money too in the latter years to get, to buy groceries and things like that. So it was a combination of being able to go to the cafeteria as well as get some of his own food.
Wow. And then what about books? Were books included?
I believe they were. I mean,
that is a true full ride. I mean, that's astounding. That really, really is. And so he graduated with his degree in animation and is now working full-time in animation. And again, for those of you that say, I want this niche major, but I don't know what the job prospects are. Watch Logan's interview and you'll see what he is going to share with us. So I'm excited for y'all to watch that too. But I love hearing both perspectives. And so what I encourage each of you to do is watch Kathleen's video and watch Logan's video. And as she said, there's some differences there, some perspective differences, but it's all so incredibly helpful. Because making sure that we focus on graduating debt free. I mean, that's why we're here, right? So was there anything else that you wanted to add? I didn't want to short circuit you, Kathleen, or was there something else you wanted to add, or some piece of advice you would give students?
So I would just encourage a student. I mean, not everyone might have a parent that either has the time or accessible as I was. Like I made it my part-time job to be a support to Logan. And if you don't have that, if anybody watching this doesn't have that, find somebody else who could. Like maybe there is a teacher at school that would guide you, the school counselor. Find somebody that you trust that can point you in the right direction. There are also nonprofit agencies in many cities across the country that are specifically designed to assist students. At the time that Logan was in high school, there was one that was specifically designed for high school students to go to. I think it was called the Metropolitan Education Corporation.
Okay.
And it was designed to assist students in finding ways to support their education. So there are resources out there, and it just takes some investigation and to team up, like, work together with one of your friends that also is aspiring, and you guys help each other locate scholarships and be a squeaky wheel. School counselors these days, I think, are very busy. Some school counselors now, budget concerns and stuff like that. There might be one school counselor working a couple different high schools. So I've encouraged Logan, you have to advocate for yourself, be in a very polite, respectful way, advocate and be this endearing, interested, squeaky wheel. And
endearing and interested. I love it. I love it. One of the things I tell my students, so it's very similar, is you need to be pleasantly persistent, not aggressively arrogant, but pleasantly persistent. So always a pleasant, but then, there's hi, I'm here again. Hi, I'm here again. Hi, I'm here again. Just saying.
Yes, and at the same time, if you can, it's important for a student to recognize anything as a potential resume item when you're in high school. For example, there's a call out to pick up trash along your bike path. That's a resume item. You can say, I volunteered with the city of Atlanta to do trash pickup. I read to children at the library on Saturday. That's a resume item. So anything that is community service minded is an asset. And at that level, it is so important because it shows your good citizenship. And that is a huge part of many scholarships. Some scholarships are strictly academics. It's what is your grade? Others, like the Gates and many, many others, are you the full package? Are you a good citizen? Do you do your best at work? Are you industrious? I mean, do your best at school, even if you don't have straight A's. And taking all of that into combination shows the person considering giving you money, the entity considering giving you money, that you are a worthwhile risk to give the money to, because you're a comprehensive human being.
Right. Well, and also connecting those same dots. So you said that that Logan had B average grades, so not that top A++ that we often see over 4.0 GPA. So his average was B+. He volunteered at the library. Well, obviously he did a good job in that particular volunteer experience because he got a letter of reference there. So I'm helping students connect these dots that they think they do things and it doesn't matter, or they think they do things to check a box. I've had some students before that said, you know, I'm president of the blah blah club. Okay, well, how often does that meet? Twice a year, twice, 2 times. Well, I just want to put it on my resume. I mean, that's not exactly what we're saying. You know, what we're saying is do the thing and put it on your resume. But also then Logan was able to do such a great job that he got a letter of recommendation, and that went in his packet towards, you know, this massive scholarship. So just keeping in mind, you know, we're all interconnected. That's the I, right? And then earlier in the conversation, the R in GRIT is return on investment. And so earlier in that conversation, you were talking about, we sat down and looked and said, okay, Logan has X amount of time. He can either spend that working in a part-time job, or he can spend that sincerely, intentionally searching for scholarships. And Logan is now an animator working full-time, having graduated from a prestigious art school, completely debt-free.
Yes.
What a phenomenal story. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. You're welcome.
Kathleen, you are such a delight.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. And yes, I wish everyone the best of luck in your aspirations. And
wonderful.
So wonderful. Go and get them.
Yeah, go get them. Exactly. Exactly. All right. Thank you again. See y'all soon. Bye-bye.